The M1 iPad Pro is Apple's cheapest version of their latest and greatest tablet in their iPad lineup. It's been out for 3 months now, and I've been using it every single day to get things done. But this tablet has gotten some heavy criticism for some justifiable reasons. I even contemplated returning it. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about some of the things that I like and don't like about the 2021 iPad Pro after using it basically every single day for the last 3 months. So the version that I picked up was the Space Gray 128 gig 11-inch iPad Pro, and this one is the basic version, and I picked it up for a lot of reasons that I don't really regret. And if you compare it with the 12-inch version, there's not too many major differences. There are a few things that I kind of wish I had. I'm going to get to that later, but before I do, let's talk about some of the things that I don't really like about this 2021 iPad Pro. Now right off the bat, I should say that there aren't too many things that I dislike about this iPad Pro. And the reason why is because it does literally everything that I need it to do. If I want to edit 4K footage, if I want to edit photos in Lightroom, if I just want to browse the web or do any intensive gaming, which I don't do much of, then I can easily use this 2021 iPad Pro without much of a problem. But of course, the major thing that I feel like I wouldn't do justice if I didn't mention is the fact that it's not that much more or that much different than what you get on the 2020 iPad Pro. That one was ahead of its time, and it did a lot that this one can do. This tablet is almost exactly like the 2020 version, and there are a few tweaks that make it stand out, but with things like the XDR version on the 12-inch, this one does not have that, and that means that the 2020 version and this one are almost the same. Now, of course, the 2021 version has the M1 chip, which the 2020 version does not. That one has the A12Z. And as I mentioned, that was ahead of its time. Even the 2018 iPad Pro was ahead of its time, but they ended up making this one seem behind the times, especially because they did not give it its software improvements in iPadOS 15 that we were expecting, such as full desktop app capabilities. The differences are so similar that if I was to close my eyes and someone were to swap out the two devices, I probably would not catch on even for a couple of days. It probably would not notice that it was switched. They look the exact same and they almost perform the exact same. By the way, I did a full comparison, so the link will be down below if you're interested in that video. But yeah, that's something that I can't really get over, especially since I just bought the 2020 version last year. Now, another thing that I wish Apple would have added specifically with the 11-inch is the XDR display. That's something that you find on the 12-inch version, and as I mentioned, it'll further differentiate this one between the old 11-inch iPads of the past. However, although I do wish I had it, I still think that the display on the 2021 iPad Pro is pretty top tier, or second tier perhaps, after the 12-inch version. And that's because it has a 120Hz display, which is good for gaming, and also the fact that it gets brighter than the M1 MacBook. Another thing that I have to mention is that so far after using it for 3 months, I'm not necessarily seeing the 10-hour battery life that Apple promised. I'm getting around 6 to 7 hours of usage, and that's really because I kind of use this as my main computer except for video editing. So as I mentioned, I do things like browse the web, edit photos in Lightroom, watch YouTube for hours on end, and I do end up using a lot of screen time. That might be the reason why I'm getting the less than advertised space, but I've noticed on the 2021, the battery life is not really the 10 hours that I thought I would get, at least in my experience. Lastly, and something that I definitely mentioned before, is that the iPad Pro 2021 cannot be connected to a full display without the black bars. So if you're somebody that would like to use this as a computer replacement, it's not really the one for you, especially if you connect it to a monitor, which is honestly the best way to use a computer, is to have 2 monitors, or at least an external monitor. But with this one, you cannot connect it to an external display without getting the annoying black bars. So that means that you don't necessarily get the full resolution in most use cases. I feel like if that was something that Apple could have just done, then I would be able to use this as a full video editor, because it means that I can connect it to the display and use Lumafusion at its full resolution. But for now, it just has the black bars, and it's really not a good experience in my personal opinion. Now, okay, so I started with the negativity. Let's talk talk about some of the things that I like. And of course, the first one is the M1 chip. We've heard about this chip since Apple released it last year. Everyone was going crazy for the M1 chip, and there is a real good reason. This chip is plenty powerful. It can handle every single task that I can throw at it. I edited a high quality 4K video with this in Lumafusion, and I edit all of my thumbnails in Lightroom. I even edit portraits in Lightroom, and I sometimes play intensive or light games, and this thing does not stutter. I've never experienced a freeze with this iPad or slowdown, as the M1 chip is highly capable and can handle most tasks. With that said though, I don't think that the M1 chip is something that a lot of average consumers will notice. And what I mean by that is, again, if you compare it with the 2021 or even the 2018 version, or if you move lineups and compare it with even the basic iPad that was released by Apple last year or the iPad Air, most people don't really notice a difference. That's because iPads honestly are plenty powerful and have been for years, so most people don't really notice the speed improvements that comes with upgrading chips. However, the bonus about this is that I know that this thing is going to last years into the future. The 2018 version is still plenty powerful and could basically do the exact same things that this one can do. So imagine what the M1 chip can do. That thing is going to last 4, 5, maybe even 6 years into the future before you're going to need to really upgrade it in terms of things getting slow or things not working on this iPad. And perhaps Apple might not add those full desktop apps now, but I feel like since the last MacBooks, the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, and this has the same chip, this should be able to, in theory, run those apps. So maybe in the future, maybe in a couple months, maybe next year, next 2 years, Apple will finally release it, and it might work for this one because it has such a powerful chip inside. Now, the other thing that I genuinely like about this 2021 iPad Pro is the fact that the USB-C port was upgraded to Thunderbolt 3. And that means that we get faster read and write speed when we connect our external devices. As a photographer, sometimes I'll take a lot of photos, thousands of photos, and I need to import them into Lightroom. Now, I've moved my workflow of editing photos directly to the iPad recently, so that means that all those photos need to live somewhere. And importing those files and exporting those files to an external hard drive is actually a lot quicker thanks to Thunderbolt 3. If you compare this to other iPads, while they are still pretty fast, every second counts as a photographer, especially when dealing with files. So this is a welcomed upgrade. Now, while I don't have any specific Thunderbolt 3 devices that I need to make use of, I still enjoy the fact that it has it. So maybe in the future, if I switch my workflow to use more Thunderbolt devices and peripherals, that means that I should be okay with using this 2021 iPad Pro. And the last among many things that I do want to highlight is the portability. This is not something that you miss out with any other iPads. They're all pretty portable. Apple even has a 7-inch version of the iPad that is the iPad mini. So portability has always been a thing with iPads. But the thing is, when you combine portability with a computer chip that is the M1 chip, that means that this thing is a double whammy. You could bring it anywhere you want, and it has so much processing power that you can do basically anything you needed to do while you're on the go. I took a trip for the first time since 2019 back in July, and I used the iPad Pro as my main computer. I decided to leave the MacBook Air at home, and I really enjoyed the iPad. It was so handy on my trip that I did not feel like I was lacking for the most part or missing something. So I was able to do things like read on a plane, watch a movie in the hotel, edit photos, edit a 4K video for YouTube, and more. And after 3 months, one of the largest benefits of getting this over the 12-inch version is the ability to put it in a backpack or just even go out and carry it with your bare hands. While the MacBook Air is already a small laptop and I bought it to do a lot of productivity things, I found that in the last 3 months, when I'm going out and I need a computer, this one is the one that I pick up just because it's so small, light, and portable, and it's really powerful as well. If I was not a video editor, I can easily get away with using this as my main device just because the 11-inch version is the one that you can just easily carry around. Now, there are a few things that I've not used in the last 3 months on this 2021 M1 iPad Pro. And a lot of it has to do with the camera. The LiDAR sensor, for example, I've never used. I've never needed to measure distance. I don't know a lot of people that do in their day-to-day use. Maybe for professional work, a lot of people need to use the LiDAR sensor, but I've never needed it on the iPad, and I do think it was more of a gimmick. My feeling is that more people are not using it than the people that are using it, and I'm included in the not using it group. The other thing that I don't really use much is the camera. While it's good for scanning documents, I don't really use the camera for taking photos. All the photos that I have, or most of the photos that I have on the iPad, were taken on my A7 III and probably exported to the iPad. I also never use center stage. When I'm on FaceTime, I tend to sit in one place. I do not move around and go different ways and all this stuff. I get the point of it. However, I just don't use it. I've never really used it. Again, I understand the appeal. I know there's probably a lot of people that will use it. However, it's just not really in my workflow. Now, the $1 million question that a lot of people might still be wondering after 3 months is, should you still buy this? Is this thing worth it? And the answer is probably not. For the biggest amount of people, the majority of people, I don't actually recommend this 2021 iPad Pro. It does everything I need it to do. It's an amazing tablet, and for a lot of people, it actually can replace their computer or laptop at home. But for me, I still can't get over the fact that the 2020 version and the 2018 version both exist, both do virtually the same thing, and are on sale right now. But if you value longevity and you really value extra speed, then this is definitely the device for you. So that pretty much wraps up the video. Let me know what you guys think down below. Are you guys enjoying your iPad Pro this far, or do you guys have any regrets with buying this one? I don't have any, but doesn't mean that you don't. So let me know. It'd be interesting to have a conversation. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace.